We all know the story of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. It's one of the biggest aviation mysteries of all time. But we're not here to rehash the official story. No, this is a look at what could have happened next. A pretty harrowing story of survival against impossible odds, a story that lasts for more than a decade. Okay, so let's just quickly ground ourselves in what we actually know, the facts. On March 8, 2014, a Boeing 770 was on a totally routine flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. And then, poof, it just vanished from radar. On board were 234 people, and their fate, officially, is a complete mystery. The official conclusion was that everyone on board was lost at sea. But right here, this is where our story takes a hard left turn from the official record. What if the crash wasn't the end? What if it was just the beginning of an unbelievable 11-year ordeal? So let's start at the beginning, a fall from the sky. This is the story of how a completely ordinary, routine flight turned into an unimaginable fight for life. So you've got this massive Boeing 777 carrying 225 passengers and 9 crew. About an hour into the flight, disaster strikes. A technical fault causes a toxic gas leak right in the cockpit, and just like that, both pilots are incapacitated. The plane, now basically a ghost ship on autopilot, just keeps flying for hours and hours, deep into the unknown. After 5 long hours, the captain, Zahari Ahmad Shah, he briefly, miraculously regains consciousness. But when he does, there are only minutes of fuel left. He looks out the window and sees nothing but an endless, dark ocean below. He just has enough time to grab the intercom and make one final, absolutely terrifying announcement. We are going to crash. In those last moments, the captain actually managed to attempt a controlled ditching on the water. And while he and his co-pilot were lost on impact, his final act wasn't in vain. Because then, something absolutely unbelievable happens. 232 people survive the crash. They find themselves alive, clinging to pieces of wreckage in the middle of this vast, dark ocean. So they survived the crash itself. But that just brings us to the next chapter of this impossible struggle. They found a shore, but it was a deceptive one. What looked like a glimmer of hope was about to become a prison made of sand. As the sun came up, one of the survivors, a man named Arav, spotted land. Can you even imagine the relief? After hours of paddling, totally exhausted, they thought they were saved. But that hope, well, it evaporated the second they got there. This was no tropical paradise. It was a tiny, 83-meter wide sandbar. All it had was 2 coconut trees and no fresh water. It wasn't salvation, it was an open-air prison.
So what do you do now? You're on this speck of sand in the middle of nowhere. You try to build a new world, a fragile one, from the wreckage, trying to make some kind of order out of absolute chaos.
And you know, at first, their shared humanity really shone through. They came up with a set of rules, noble rules for survival. Water was shared, with kids and the injured getting it first. They cared for the wounded with bandages made from torn clothes. They built shelters out of plane debris. They scraped SOS into the sand and polished debris that uses signals. They rationed every single scrap of food, all while holding on to this desperate hope of rescue. A rescue that, tragically, was never going to come. But that unity, it couldn't last. Not under that kind of pressure. As days turned into months and months into years, hope just began to die. And that brings us to the next dark phase of this story, the years of silence, where hope erodes and their humanity begins to fade. That initial solidarity just shattered. Factions started to form. People started hoarding resources instead of sharing them. At one point, they caught a sea turtle. I mean, that would have been a feast, but they fought so violently over it that the turtle was lost to the sea. The ultimate low point came on day 121. They saw a jet in the sky, but the plane just flew on, completely oblivious. The despair after that was crushing, and soon after, the first person died from sickness. And the years that followed, well, they were just a long, slow decay. By the end of the first year, less than 100 people were left. In year 4, a child was born on the island, but died from malnutrition. By year 7, the sand itself was so barren, nothing would grow. In year 8, a storm took out one of their 2 coconut trees. And after a decade, their final, desperate attempt to build a raft failed. At that point, there were fewer than 30 of them left. And this brings us to the end. The final, solitary chapter of this whole nightmare. 11 years later, there's just one man left. 11 years.
Just let that sink in for a minute. Think about everything you've done in the last 11 years. For them, it was just the same brutal struggle, day in and day out. Over a decade, trapped on a tiny patch of sand, completely forgotten by the entire world. 233 people, all gone. But their end didn't come in one fiery moment. No, this was a slow, agonizing grind. They were picked off one by one, over years, by hunger, by sickness, and in the end, by just utter, soul-crushing despair. And after all that time, after all those losses, one person was left. And in the most heartbreaking, cruelest twist of fate, it was Arav, the man who first spotted the island and gave everyone that first spark of hope. He was the last one left to witness its tragic end. But the story doesn't actually end there, with him alone on that island. Because eventually, the world found them, or what was left of them. And that discovery, a story written in bone, would rewrite a global tragedy. 6 months after Arav, the very last survivor, finally passed away, a tourist boat got lost in a storm, and by pure dumb luck, it stumbled upon the island. What that boat crew found was something straight out of a nightmare. This wasn't an island, it was a graveyard. It was just littered with human skeletons, the crumbling remains of their shelters, and bones scattered across the sand like seashells. And then, near one of the skeletons, they found it, a broken cell phone. And scratched into the plastic on the back was a final, devastating message to a world that had moved on without them. It just said, "We are from MH370. We tried." I mean, think about it. They survived the impossible, a fall from 35,000 feet, only to face a slower, and you could argue, a much more terrible fate on the ground. It just makes you wonder, doesn't it? What is the true meaning of survival, if this is what it leads to? One of the rescuers later described a final, haunting detail that just perfectly captured their entire story. The skeleton of a hand, its bony fingers tangled in the twig of a tiny withered plant. It's a symbol of their unending struggle, their unbreakable spirit, and ultimately their most tragic defeat. A testament to the fact that they fought for life, right up until the very last breath.